everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of Discovering Doctor Who. Today I'm going to be talking about the episode The Shakespeare Code, an episode where the Doctor takes Martha Jones back to, I believe it's 1599, to meet the one and only William Shakespeare and actually see wait, I forgot the name of the play, but anyway, Love's something lost. Yeah, see a live performance of it. Wow, I forgot the name of the play, that's bad. But anyway, that aside, let's get right into some of my favorite parts of this episode. The first of which is William Shakespeare himself. Now, the portrayal of William Shakespeare was honestly a bit of a surprise to me. Now, I know that, we sort of get these idealized images of historical figures, especially ones like William Shakespeare, and even the Doctor himself has a little bit of a moment where he's a little bit taken aback by the way William Shakespeare portrays himself at the end of the play, and I found that really interesting. And one thing about the portrayal of William Shakespeare is the fact that, one, he's crass, he's rather full of himself, he's pretty pompous, but at the same time he's a very deep character, a very philosophical and extremely smart character. I didn't particularly care for the way the Doctor just sort of went on and on and on and on and on about how smart and amazing William Shakespeare is. That was a little bit overblown, but I mean, they do portray him to be an extremely smart person, and he's able to deduce what is actually going on, where Martha Jones is really from, where that the Doctor is from the future, that they're both from the future, and that the Doctor is an alien. I just really liked that aspect, and I thought they did a good job of portraying William Shakespeare, even though it was one I didn't particularly expect. Now, the second favorite part of this episode was the poppet slash voodoo doll. I looked it up, and they actually call it a poppet in the description for this episode, and it's just the different ways that it was used throughout the episode. One, to manipulate not the Doctor, but they did use it to manipulate the Doctor at one point. Just anytime it was really used, I found that really intriguing because it was sort of a callback to, not to the show in particular, but just some of the things I've seen before having to do with voodoo dolls. And, a lot of times we'll see these things with voodoo dolls where, someone gets stabbed in the heart and then all of a sudden all this blood appears. And they went a very different and, I guess, more realistic in a sense way about it, in that when the doll is stabbed through the heart, that it doesn't just start bursting blood as if it was actually stabbed, but the heart itself stops. So there were just aspects of that I really liked. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, just one of my favorite parts of the episode. All right, now the third favorite part of this episode were the Carrionites and their witchcraft. I just really like, as I already mentioned one of their one of the things having to do with their witchcraft, which was the poppet. But even the way that they are able to make this one man essentially drown when, there's no water really around him, or he ends up with his head, I guess, in a bucket or something like that. But just the way that the magic is done, and even the way the Doctor explains the magic, it's like, it's actually, a sort of a science, but it's just done in a different way because, in our modern age, we rely more on mathematics, and they rely more on words, which I'll get to that in a second. And then the Carrionites themselves, I just found, pretty interesting because they were essentially portrayed as sort of a classical image of the witch. Both the young, I believe her name was Lilith, and the older ones, which were just the very, almost like the evil queen after she transforms in the original Snow White cartoon. Just like the very wrinkled and haggard. I just really liked that portrayal and just thought it was really interesting. Now, the fourth favorite part of this episode, as I mentioned before, was, the science through words, or the power of words. That's really the fourth best part, is their focus on the power of words. I just found it really interesting. It was a little bit confusing at first, that when the Doctor called the Carrionite, I name you Carrionite, and she just kind of went away. And I thought that, she was just gone. I thought that the Carrionite was destroyed, but then she just sort of reappears. So, it's apparently not like, at least as far as what he did, a destructive magic, but, very powerful all the same, which carries on with just, well, I mean, William Shakespeare was a wordsmith, and that just really was a good way to sort of focus on the power of what he can do with with words, the power of words, because so many of his plays, his poems have just really influenced a lot of literature today. So, I mean, there was just a lot of aspects to it, outside of magic, but even having to do with the magic of the episode itself. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. I apologize for that. But yeah, fourth favorite part of this episode, the power of words, just having to do with that. Now, the fifth and final favorite part of this episode was basically right at the end. It was when William Shakespeare was saying his lines off the top of his head to banish the Carrionites and their released sisters. I guess they're all, I suppose they're all female, but basically to send all the Carrionites back into this globe, or the crystal ball. And the very last line, where apparently with Martha Jones being a bit of a, not a Whovian, but that wouldn't make sense because that would be really meta, but a fan of Harry Potter, and so the last rhyme basically ends up being Expelliarmus! I think that's the right word, Expelliarmus! And the very last thing that Doctor says is, good old JK! So that's my fifth favorite part of this episode was good old JK. I really like the way that they threw that in there, and just, of course, tying in the whole witchcraft and wizardry thing. I just really liked it. This was a fun little episode. But I do have one issue with this episode, and it's that during that last scene, before all the Carrionites get banished again, now they've all been released. I assume they've all been released because there's tons of them flying around, and there's the 3 Carrionites, the 2 older ones and the 1 younger one, Lilith, and during that entire time that William Shakespeare is saying these things, especially during the pauses, cannot single one of them have done something to stop him? I mean, it seemed like there was literally no attempt by any of them to stop him. They've been doing all of this magic with the poppets and basically killing one guy with a touch. How is it that throughout that entire time that, because it had to be at least a few minutes, or maybe just a minute, but a couple of minutes with Shakespeare, rattling off these words to banish them. How is it that none of them tried to attack him or tried to stop him? That really bothered me, and I get that, I guess they needed to wrap up the episode, but still, it's just it seems like there should have been some attempt to stop him, in my mind. I don't know, do something with the poppet to where he can't move, but then he's still able to speak it? I don't know. It was, like most things, it's just a really minor issue overall, but it really did bother me. And I guess, before I go on, I keep forgetting that I need to do my quote of the episode, and this one was a fun one. This episode, the quote that I picked is mostly just because it made me laugh, which I think has been the last few of them. There were some really good quotable lines in this episode, especially a lot of the back and forth between Shakespeare and the Doctor, and the back and forth between Shakespeare and Martha, who, I mean, he was, I even forgot to mention this earlier, I really liked the way they had him flirting with her basically incessantly. And that was really interesting because, as Martha points out, that was during the time when slavery was still a thing. But anyway, the quote that I picked is between the Doctor and Martha, and it's having to do with how history works, or changing past events works, as far as how it occurs in the Doctor Who universe. And it goes like this. The Doctor says, "Oh, how to explain the mechanics of the infinite temporal flux? I know, Back to the Future. It's like Back to the Future." Martha Jones says, "The film? No, the novelisation." Yes, the film! Well, first of all, because I love Back to the Future, and second of all, just the sarcasm in that phrase. Just, no, the novelization. Yes, the film! That was just a fun quote. I really like that. As always, let me know what some of your favorite quotes of this episode were, because there were a lot. There were some really good lines. Now, as for how I feel about this episode overall, and this may disappoint some of you, I'm not entirely sure, but I liked it. It was fun, but overall it really just felt kind of average. That wasn't a bad episode by any means, not even close. It's one that I, you know, if I am going back through Doctor Who episodes someday, I'll probably rewatch it, you know, and not even really consider skipping, but it's just, it didn't really feel like anything special overall. Yeah, and like I said, it definitely wasn't bad, but it was just kind of didn't really feel like there was anything special about it, except for maybe the sort of cold way that the Doctor was acting toward Martha at times, which I think one of the commenters has mentioned that he thinks that David Tennant was often too human, or he acted too human when he's very much an alien. He, you know, and previous Doctors have acted more alien. And so maybe this is sort of that way of, now that Rose is gone, the one character that, you know, not only we, but the Doctor have had the most emotional attachment to this entire time. It's a way for, you know, sort of transitioning the Doctor back to the way he, you know, used to act toward humans, which is just more in a, you know, not hateful or neglectful way, but just sort of the cold, you know, not entirely emotionally invested way. I guess that's a good way to put it. But yeah, like I said, overall, episode was good, but not exceptional. It was okay. Better than okay. It was decent. All of that may sound bad if you really like this episode. I'm not really going to apologize, but that's just the way I felt about it. Sorry. But anyway, everyone, thank you very much for watching this episode of Discovering Doctor Who. I hope you enjoyed the review. I'm looking forward to getting into the next episode, which I've already watched and will be reviewing very shortly. And before I go, there is one thing that I want to sort of plug. It's one of my new videos that I've put out. If you're a fan of comic books at all, I put out my first attempt at a comic book review for a comic book called Yisun Shin, Warrior and Defender. It is an independently published graphic novel, and if you'd like to check out that review, please go here. You can click on here if you're watching on YouTube or if you're on your cell phone. The link will be down in the description. Please go check that out. I would love to hear what your thoughts are as far as what I have to say about the episode as a whole, or the episode about the graphic novel as a whole. And I don't know that it'll be something that I am going to do frequently. It may just be a one-off sort of thing because I don't really do graphic novels. I love them, but I don't really review them. But I've been rambling on long enough. But wait! There's one last thing I forgot to say. Why does Queen Elizabeth want the Doctor dead? What did he do? Is it going to be something that's addressed later in the show? Is it going to be something that's just never really addressed? Or maybe it happened in, I don't know, one of the Doctor's past lives. Who knows? You probably do, because you've seen more of the show than I have. But that's besides the point. Why does why does the Queen want the Doctor dead? Anyway, back to wrapping this up. Again, everyone, thank you very much for watching this episode, and I will see you next time on the next Discovering Doctor Who.